Hello, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And I'm back because I think there is this thing that we really need to address. I was listening to Dr. Shabazz Gill, and he was talking about Ziaul Haq, and sorry, he was reminding us of how it all went and how he died and all, and how it is his dictatorship that has led us to today and all. And in fact, again, again the same thing that I keep on, you know, which is why I keep on saying that you cannot, that when Dr. Moeed Pirzada, for example, or Dr. Shabazz Gill, or anybody else, when they keep on saying that, oh, the public blames the whole army, but actually it's not the whole army, but we need to blame the few corrupt people who are using and abusing the army from within, and out. Then, I come back to that point that, first of all, for as long as we remember, yeah, trust something to happen when I'm trying to do a podcast. But anyway, sorry. I apologize. Let's begin. As I was saying, that as I said, if the problem was with only a few people who hijacked the army, then, as I said, right from olden times, the army has never allowed even their own chief to go against the army rules, or to make them do something, to commit some atrocity that is way beyond their moral grounds or their training. And at one point, they always, have a mutiny, right? So I don't get it. This is why I think that when the public and when we all say, yeah, the whole army is fucked, the whole army is corrupt, it's true. Because, okay, I mean, as you talk about Ziaul Haq, and you talk about, now notice, again, as I would say, first of all, the very fact that we have had no less than at least four, you can say four attempts at dictatorship, four successful, attempts at dictatorship. Or is it three successful and the fourth is still there? Anyway, okay, let's say three successful dictatorships, as in that they actually happened, and then this fourth one who's dying to have it. So in all of these years, why is it that the army never did anything to prevent such a thing from happening all over again? Why? I mean, it only feeds to my opinion and my theory and my belief, and it actually adds to it, to the otherwise circumstantial evidence that our army was always hijacked right from the start. The British, one of the gifts that they left us, when they allowed us to have Pakistan, one of the gifts that they left us was a planted army. I mean, the army was never ours. You see, it goes back to that, and this is proof again, because listen again, if the army really is not a treasonous body within, on its own, if it is truly as you know, even in my books, in my novels, the Mist series, I have mentioned the two factions within the army. I've mentioned that. I know very well that there have been two factions within the army. One is absolutely pro-Pakistani, and the other one is, the one that is the one that keeps on and on, succumbing us to dictatorship. The one that is, under the British and the Americans, who serve other masters, right? And it's pretty obvious who's right now in power. But again, as I'd say, if the army as a whole body was never serious, I mean, was never, planted, you can say, or was never already hijacked, or it was already not compromised, then why is it that they have allowed one from amongst them to keep on and on coming up and plunging us into dictatorship over and over again? How is it that the very founders of Pakistan were killed by the very army, And how is it that when Fatma Jinnah was killed by the army just because she won the votes of the people and he couldn't bear that? And so, he decided to get her killed and he started a dictatorship. Why is it that, so we have Yahya, we have Ayub, we have Musharraf, and all of them seemed, we have Ziaul Haq. So, yeah, I'm right, actually. We have had four successful dictatorships, as in dictatorships that actually happened. And there's this fifth one who's dying to follow their footsteps. So, again, tell me, if the army was sincere with Pakistan, how is it that they did not immediately put in clauses or conditions or created some sort of an ironclad rule or law to prevent dictatorship from being even possible? It means that the army, they deliberately left that leeway. They're like, oh, there is a loophole here that we can use and abuse. Let's just keep it. Oh yeah, we in theory we don't agree. We don't agree with we wouldn't accept it and we would never encourage it. But you know what? This is something that we shouldn't lose. We shouldn't close that door. That's exactly what they've done, which means that your army, again, I would say it's proof your army was never yours. The fact that your army was used right off the bat to kill off the founders of your own country and then to kill off any next person who is sincere towards your country or with your country. The fact that every single time they had a problem with the politicians, they just usurped their positions, and declared dictatorship. The fact that behind every such successful declaration of dictatorship, you will find America quiet. America and Britain, who always talk about free world and they talk about democracy and they say they can never accept Cuba because it's a dictatorship. They can never accept, what, Chile was it? At one point, they can never accept North Korea because it's a dictatorship. Really? Is that really why you cannot accept it? They could never accept Russia because they felt that it was a communist party. So, they could never accept China because, again, communist party. And North Korea too, actually. They could never accept it because initially it was all about it being under communism. So again, I'll ask you, is it really, really the reason why they cannot accept? Really? Then why do they keep on and on accepting all the dictators of Pakistan? And why have all these dictators very successfully served their dictatorship until their deaths? Until they were killed off finally, or they died in some way, or, whatever. But I mean, why? Has anybody ever thought about that? Because that is something that every single time people talk about the army, I think about that. I do. I always think about all these questions one by one, every single time. How is it that nobody did anything when Fatma Jinnah, when the public mandate was stolen? That was the first time that the public mandate was stolen, when Fatma Jinnah won the election and suddenly, the army just swooped in. I don't remember if it was Yahya or Ayub at her time. I can't even be bothered because to me, these people are not worth remembering, except for the fact that they usurped, our politics. And you know what? Notice how every single person who becomes a dictator in Pakistan, every single person who, again, America and Britain and every other country that matters very quietly accepts. They make no mention of how Pakistan is struggling under dictatorship. They make no mention about how they will not accept them. They always accept them, and then these dictators, they go anti-Jinnah. Have you noticed that? Yes, including our favorite Musharraf, who is supposed to have been the mildest of all dictators, by the way, and the least harmful of all dictators also. But you know what? Even he was anti-Jinnah, in the sense that he thought that he specifically made the people who wrote his speeches, he specifically made them remove quotations that they added of Jinnah, of Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, saying it's too liberal. What do you mean it's too liberal? He's the founder of Pakistan. You have a problem with his ideology based on which he made Pakistan, you leave. And that is another thing I keep on saying to many people who always, try to be very pseudo intellectual and say, oh, Pakistan was a mistake. It is indeed true. It was a trap and it was a plan and it was a sly and this. You think Qaid Azam was a fool? You think he didn't know what they were? Oh, he knew exactly what they were doing. But remember what he said? I think it is because of this particular, maybe it was actually in this particular context that Qaid Azam said those words. I make a decision and then I make it right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He made the decision of Pakistan and then he made sure that it was the right decision. He didn't care that the British and the Hindus were plotting together that, oh, we'll just try to, make Pakistan into a buffer state, but one way or the other, it will still never retain its sovereignty. It will one day or the other, go back under the Indian umbrella. And, until then, obviously, it will somehow serve as some sort of as a state to be controlled by the British, aka the Americans, who are the right-hand men, the hired thugs of the British. So there you are. You're seriously, you have a problem with the fact that Pakistan was made. Leave. I personally don't see anything wrong with the fact that Pakistan was made. It was something it was, listen, as God himself says, not a single leaf would even fall from a tree without my knowing, without my command. That means that not a single country on this earth can ever be made by mistake. It may look like a mistake, it may look like a trap, it may look like a plan, it may look like a conspiracy, it may look like a plot, it may look like a cunning, how do we say it? A cunning trap, but at the end of the day, it is there because it had to be there. Nothing in this world happens that shouldn't happen. If something has happened, it means it was meant to be. So Pakistan was meant to be, and it happened. You think Qaid Azam, remember in the beginning, Qaid Azam was also against breaking up of India. In fact, Qaid Azam was the advocate of united India. That time, he did not agree with Allama Iqbal. But Allama Iqbal kept on telling him that at the end you will realize that we at the end will have to have our own country. And at the end, Qaid Azam realized it. Jinnah realized it. And he's like, hang on, he's right. Because the way the Hindus were behaving, much as they are right now behaving, as you can see today in India, you're saying, and that's another argument people always make. And that in itself just shows, when you say that the devil makes the arguments to make you, this is exactly that. These arguments also basically stem from the Indians. It's the Indians who propagate these kind of arguments where they say, we have the largest Muslim population in the subcontinent, or compared to Pakistan anyway. And so if Pakistan was never independent, imagine the number of Muslims that could have been in India. And I'm like, yeah, and imagine the number of Muslims suffering in India. Right now, you claim to have a Muslim population that is even larger than us. And how are they being treated in India? What makes you think that if we hadn't separated, the Muslims of India would have been powerful? No, this is exactly what Qaid Azam first thought, and then he realized was wrong. This is exactly what he realized, that, oh, hang on. It's not a matter of population. It's not a matter of how large in numbers we are. The way things are going, we will be at a huge loss if we don't get a country of our own. And he was right. Okay? Now, the fact that the British, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that the British were planning and plotting, you think Qaid Azam didn't know? Oh, he knew. And that is why he worked so tirelessly as soon as Pakistan was made, weeding out traitors from within the government. And as I said, maybe he should have started with the army, not with the government. But he was in such a hurry, he knew he didn't have enough time. He just had to do what he could, the best he could. And at that point, I guess he thought that the biggest, most immediate danger that was being posed was in the NWFP, the then NWFP government. And so he had to weed them out. So, yeah. So don't give me that crap, seriously, when you talk about, the army, or when you talk about Pakistan and all. No, again, right now, even the army is literally working on a constitution that will contradict the very ideology of Qaid Azam. The army and your so-called government are literally, so what does that mean? So it again proves my point, if anything, which I've always said, that Pakistan was hijacked the very day it was created. It was hijacked, and the people who actually struggled for Pakistan haven't had the luck, the opportunity to take advantage of the country. In fact, the people who did not want Pakistan, the bootlickers, the turncoats, they're the ones who immediately latched onto Pakistan and started taking full advantage. And this is why I say that, contrary to this popular belief that, Pakistanis are very patriotic, no. What I believe is Pakistanis are traitors. The real Pakistanis, the real patriots, they're not even here. They're all overseas. The Pakistani diaspora, or the Biharis, for example, who never even got their passports, they're the real Pakistanis, the real patriots who didn't it's not even in their faith to actually get to live in Pakistan properly. The majority, I think, of the people in Pakistan are descendants of those very people who were against the making of Pakistan. But the minute Pakistan was made, they decided to just come here and grab any properties that they could find, grab homes, grab lands, grab assets, and they literally took full advantage of Pakistan, and they did nothing for Pakistan. And those of us who have been doing, or whose parents or grandparents have been doing something for Pakistan, we are always at the losing end. Why? It's the same thing which you will see even in South Korea, for example. The elites in South Korea are the same people who were pro-Japanese during the Japanese invasion. They were the same turncoats who took full advantage of the situation when they were under the Japanese rule, and then they flipped as soon as they saw which side the tide was going. They flipped and then declared themselves. And you know what happened to the freedom fighters and their families? Living in poverty, unknown, while those turncoats are taking they're actually taking the whole, even now they're in politics, they're in business, they're the elites, and they're taking full advantage, and they're taking merit and credit for being part of the freedom movement. Seriously? We've got the same scenario here, except that over here they wouldn't dare declare themselves to be part of the freedom movement, because they know that now they'll definitely be killed by somebody if they do that, because they're so obviously descendants of the turncoats and bootlickers, because these are feudal. Who else could be feudal lords but those who were given lands by the British after licking their ass? Or those who, after Pakistan was made, licked the asses of those ass lickers, like Nawaz Sharif and his family, or Zardari. Zardari literally just got married into the family that, again, descended from the ass lickers. Yes, because they were feudal. Again, these are feudal. How do you know that the Bhutto family were not bootlickers of their time? They must have been. The way they seem to still always want to exert control in Sindh, which now Zardari is taking over. I mean, doesn't that tell you anything? If anything, you should be mighty suspicious of their history. No patriot has ever earned a single dime after coming to Pakistan. Okay? Those who struggled lost. a lot, even after coming to Pakistan. Those who had nothing, literally nothing, they came to Pakistan, they declared properties that weren't even theirs as their own, because there was an exchange of properties. As you know, if you left properties in Pakistan, then the government of India, for example, would allow you to declare your assets and compensate you for that. And the same was in Pakistan. So there were so many people who declared assets that actually they never had, you know. So those who actually had assets lost everything, both here and there. So again, you know, don't give me that crap. You know, right now your army and the descendants of the bootlickers and the descendants of the bootlickers are sitting there, and they are literally trying to change your constitution, and they are trying to flip it to the complete opposite of what was Quaid-e-Azam's ideology of Pakistan. And as I said, I'm not even surprised. I'm only surprised that it took them this much time. But again, actually, I'm not even surprised it took them this much time, because as I told you, right now they're here on this mission to complete the decades-old mission, or the decades-old plan, you know. As I told you before, these plans were put into the machinery. They were put into execution. They were put into a process that they knew would span through decades. And this is now the time. This is the time where they're like, okay, yeah, now's the time to completely screw Pakistan, completely finish its identity, because we never allowed Pakistan to be a sovereign state anyway. And now that everybody who has anything to do with the actual sovereignty, integrity of Pakistan are out of the way, now we can work on dissembling Pakistan. And that's what they're doing. And that again proves my point that I was right, not only about the whole thing, but also about the fact that Pakistan was hijacked the very day that it was created. And Pakistan is right now filled with traitors, not patriots. The patriots are all abroad, except some of us who were idiotic enough to come back to this hellhole and are now stuck here forever. So there you are. You answer these questions of mine, and I'll give it to you that yes, okay, it's not the army's fault, it's just a few people. No, you just try to prove me wrong that it's not the army's fault. 4 dictatorships, and your army never decided to sit down and make a foolproof plan that this should never ever happen again? You're telling me that? You're telling me that your establishment never sat down and thought about this? You're telling me that your government right now that is dismantling your constitution with the army, that they didn't have the plans that I've been saying they've had, or that many of us have been now, you know, many people are now awake to the fact that they had these plans of dismantling the country and, you know, completing the mission? You serious? You answer these questions of mine, prove me wrong. And this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.